What is up? Welcome to another episode of Circle Debate Podcast. I am your temporary, one time only, probably more, but we'll start with one host, Chris DK1 Kennedy, with my man with the plan, the devious one, Ivan Castellon. How do you say your last name? Castellon?
Yeah, you said it right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we've
I'm the co-host, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm sitting back and I'm allowing
and we've got the
director to take over.
The main man, the Akita dad, with him, the man of all trades, the Brandon Ascari from Global Syndicate Wrestling, off the heels of his debut event. And I'm going to stand up and give you an applause.
I'm going to have to do the same thing, man. I have to.
Because it has been almost a month to the day, maybe a little bit, give or take a few days, where we last had you on announcing the direction of your company, a debut company in the middle of a global bastard. You weren't even sure how this event was going to go, if it was going to happen, if there was going to be stricter or looser regulations, if you were going to have audience, no audience. They could have canceled it the day of. They thankfully did not, and you put on one hell of a debut show with Inception. Talk about that process, man. 0 hour, you show up that day to the event. What do you know about the regulations that they have upon you? Do you know everything, or is it literally till the door is open that they can call you and say, shut her down?
Well, I mean, the thing about New Jersey is also similar, like New York, California. It is, anything could happen at any time, kind of. Everything changes day by day. We were lucky that when we lost our original venue and switched over to the Monster Factory, they're like in close with the town, like they talk to them all the time and they're up to date, and the town keeps them up to date with what's going on. They're in good with each other. So we were pretty comfortable going in, like, okay, we're going to be allowed to have 25%. And then I think a few days before the show, our governor actually raised it to 35%. So we technically could have had more, but I don't think the percentage, and it's a big misconception, percentages really don't make much of a difference, because if you're in a venue and people have to be 6 feet apart, then automatically that's like 1 out of every 3 or 4 seats. So
right,
no matter what, I'm capped at 25% or so if I have to have 2 or 3 seats in between people. So the total number is really the bigger important thing. And in the venue, with the distancing, we were allowed, it was like 75 people, and I think we had maybe 60 in there or something like that.
But then when you space them apart, I mean, cameras can be a little bit out of a little bit of a delusion. It almost looks like a full venue. I mean, give or take the size of the venue, but on the cameras, especially if you have a hard camera and then some moving cameras, space them out a little bit. That might help. That might almost be like having seat fillers. So instead of having like 60 people in one section, you've got 60 people every 4 or 5 seats. So It fills out, definitely. You ever thought about doing like what baseball teams do and getting cardboard cutouts? Like I know. Like I think the Colorado Rockies straight up got, what was it? Don't do 2,000, but 2,000 South Park characters. I think it was, and they literally put 2,000 South Park characters because Colorado opened the seats.
Yeah.
Anything like that, or was it just straight up just worry about the show and then the fans come after?
Well, I mean, it was both, and we weren't going to actually put physical chairs in between people. We just had
right. Then they'd be tempted to sit
out. Yeah, so we didn't want it to look like there's a bunch of empty seats in there. So it was just, make sure the distancing's right. If you ordered 3 tickets with your family or whatever, of course you guys can sit together. So we did have like groups of chunks of people that were around the ring and a couple rows back. So it looked, on camera, you could tell that there's, spaced out seats, but it doesn't look like it's an empty house by any means.
Good. Yeah. Because that's kind of what we want goddamn, you pull off a debut show in the middle of the hardest time to pull off anything, let alone a recreational entertainment business. So that is, you retweeted something on the 5th. I actually have it up. William Regal's tweet about make everything you do mean something or don't do it. You literally did that exact thing. Like you just definitely you put your head down and you were like, we're going forward. And I'm pretty stoked on it. And you've already announced the second event, Catalyst, which is in May. Before we get to that, let's talk about Inception itself. Yeah. I got the results pulled up right here because there's a couple. I watched so many events that I just have to have something in front of me. The first match of the night, the singles match between Mike Elgin and Wrecking Ball Legursky. great match, but you've got royalty in the family now. You have Joseph Fatu, right? Is that correct?
Jacob
Fatu. My bad. He's like the combat unit heavyweight champion, right? So you have like royalty and champions already showing up right off the bat. Bringing someone in with prestige like that. Not that anyone else on your card doesn't have it, but people know the Fatu family if they're a wrestling fan. The goings on about bringing that in and making that a surprise. What was that like?
I mean, it was, one thing that we think about is there has to be some sort of story that ties in show to show to show, whether it's an overall story or just like one show to the next. It's like, if you're going to make people want to come back to the show, you got to do something to set up for the next show, whatever it is. So it's like, all right, Elgin and Fatu would be an awesome match to have. They're going to go out there and just beat the life out of each other. So we were excited about that. Fatu, actually, we had reached out to him a long time ago as a possibility for maybe like a main event match or just something, on one of our matches on the card, and he didn't respond to us. And then we heard that when we were talking to Hammerstone more and more, we heard that he was going to MLW and like, everybody, you got to check out GSW. Like, they're freaking awesome over there, like blah, blah, blah. So he heard that. And then I guess went to message us and saw that we hit him up. And then he's like, oh, dude, I'd be more than happy to come over there. Like, and we're like, well, we don't really have a match for you. He's like, well, how can I be a part of the show? And we're like, oh, we got an idea.
It's still the turntables have turned where he didn't know about you guys. I guess maybe you obviously have to build a rep with some wrestlers before they even entertain the idea of showing up. Hammerstone gets involved, and then he hears word of mouth that GSW is definitely something to look out for. Then he's blowing up your phone, and you're just like, sorry about it, a little late. Wait, never mind. We might have something. So is that essentially the story was just he just wasn't familiar, obviously, and then kind of turned that around?
It was a lot like we had heard this from multiple people that we're a new company. They're a little apprehensive because we've never had a show before and nobody's worked with us before. So they're like, well, blah, blah, blah. They wanted to kind of see what we were about before we were there, but then having people who are also known that they know start talking us up. I guess from just our conversations, they started to see that we meant what we were going to do. Like we meant what we were saying and stuff like that. I think having people like that vouch for us, all of a sudden, like just the floodgates open and everybody wanted to work with us.
Gotcha. Do you think it was, you brought up Alex Hammerstone leading the charge. Do you think it was him that kind of got that ball rolling, or was it just you posting the card itself, seeing who was on it, and then the rumors started to pick up steam? Did you have other people that were already on the roster calling up their friends and be like, bro, get down to Jersey right now. We got something for you.
It ended up being a lot of people. I think like when we had Jazz and people found out that Jazz was helping out behind the scenes, that built a lot of credibility for us. We have Dutch Mantel helping us behind the scenes. So that's a lot of credibility. Hammerstone, he was in the beginning talking us up, Elgin too. Just a lot of people that knew about us, and everybody like, all right, so Hammerstone spoke to Fatu and one or two other people, and Jazz spoke to one or two other people. So it was just a combination of a couple of people that we had hired that like all of a sudden became like our champions, in the sense of like speaking to other people.
And we'll get to that literally later also, pun intended.
Yep.
Let's go here. All right. I got a couple windows open. I like to stay researched. There we go. Cool. Cut up next to, I think is probably your most notable athlete on the card right now. You got two. Okay. So you have Gianna Perazzo, and then you have Austin Aries, who I think are as established as anyone can be right now. Obviously, Alexander Hammerstone is coming up. He is your champion. Spoiler alert. Is that cool? I hope I didn't really. It's been like a week or two, right? All right. Yeah. You can still go watch replays, right? Didn't you say the replays were going to be up for X amount of time?
Yeah. And Fight TV's up there. Anybody wants to watch it. We're in the process of every couple days, we're posting like highlight videos from each match, but like we're on Cage Match and all of our results are on there. So cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. I think I'm on wrestling-news.net.
Also, I wanted to mention very briefly that we are going to have one of your champions on the show soon, and that is Gio Galvani. He's going to be joining us soon. So yeah, your next gen champion. So His first title run for the first time ever winning a championship in a promotion. So I'm kudos to him. And I wanted to ask, what made your decision to move forward with him?
He is, I actually, I film for another independent wrestling company called Invictus Wrestling. And I saw him there, filmed him twice performing. And I was like, wow, this kid has like a Shawn Michaels-ness about him. He has like that, the long hair, but also like the kid can sell like it's nobody's business. He's good in the ring. And then when we found out at the time he only had 25 matches in his career, we're like, what? Only 25 matches? All right. If we put you with the right people, they're going to polish you up. You're going to be a star in a year or two. So that was somebody that we saw and we're like, this is somebody that we have to, put some stock into and see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. And congratulations to him. And I'm glad that you made a decision with him because he does have that potential. Seeing his matches, prior before, and then also seeing him in that battle royal, winning the championship, I was stoked for him, and I'm looking forward, even us speaking to him, pretty soon and having him on the show and see what's his goal in 2021 in GSW. Hopefully, you never know, dual champion, maybe.
But it's not up to Brandon. He's got to earn that. He's got to.
No, of course he's gonna have to earn it.
He's got to earn the shot and then earn that win. But you mentioned that, I don't want to say green, that's almost an insultive term, but to have so few fights or wrestling matches on his resume, and you obviously didn't go back and watch all 25 of them, right? Did you just watch whatever was most recent? Yeah, okay.
Well, I saw pretty much, not all of them are available.
Right, yeah. Some of them are like a Taco Bell parking lot, like mine were. Yeah. In what moment, like, was there a particular match of his versus someone that stood out for you where you were like, that's the one? Was it word of mouth, or did you just see that spark immediately somewhere that just, I want him, he's going to the top, we might even have a future with him as our talent, organically growing him?
Yep. The show that I filmed him where I first saw him was Invictus's debut show. They had him against MCM, Mucho Chris Moljo. They went, I think they were like a semi-main event or something, and it was the best match on the card. Like, just classic, like, wrestling. They did a great job. They told a story, good heel and face storyline, nothing crazy, but everything was done well. And I was like, okay, that's somebody that we need to have on our show.
Yeah, and we spoke at length in our last interview about your film industry career, and we went really in depth about how important story wrestling is, stories in general, and then also applying that to wrestling. So for you to see that in the ring, not just a character with a gimmick who can get on the mic, which is absolutely important, but to see the psychology within the ring and to be able to do that within 25 matches, and you've only seen, a handful of those up to now. Literally the one you saw, and then probably the one in your own event.
Yeah.
Do you see him being a staple of the company, or are you going to try and lock him down to some kind of, I don't want to say lock down to a contract, it sounds very Vince, I don't want to do that, but maybe being a new face of the company, putting him forefront on the flyers, along, mega giants like Alex, like Austin, like Deanna? Do you see him potentially being the face of the company?
Right now, no. In the span of 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. He has the potential to definitely carry a banner. But you see that potential for sure. Okay.
I think as it's going to be like we have to see like how it goes. I have plans and I have ideas, and if they're successful, then honestly, I think within the next couple of years, he could be representing not only this company, but other companies too.
Right. Because I think with independent wrestling right now, exclusive contracts probably don't even exist. And if they did, are probably the worst thing any one of them could do. Is that probably what's going on?
Well, I look at it this way. Like, I can hire pretty much anyone that I want from Impact Wrestling who wants to take a booking, and I could hire just about anybody from MLW. So at the stage of the game that I'm at right now, there's no way that I could afford to keep somebody under a permanent contract if a multi-million-dollar organization.
I feel you. And you kind of do want to have, I guess, a revolving door of talent coming in and out. Instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, you kind of maybe want to see who comes and goes, who fits, who doesn't fit.
I would really like to, within a year or two, be in a position where we could have maybe 4 or 5 people under an exclusive contract. Not like exclusive that you can't wrestle somewhere else, but exclusive in that our dates come first. You're under, you're full time with us. Going. If we're not filming this Saturday, go ahead, take whatever you want. I would like to be in that position soon, so that way we have the core roster. This is GSW, and then we bring in outside talent just to make the show even greater.
Right. So synonymous. So when you think GSW or you think this particular wrestler, they go hand in hand. Like you can think of wrestler A and you're like GSW, wrestler B, GSW. So you definitely want to have, like I said, faces of the company per se, which is awesome. And those can be both already established, which you've had plenty of on this card, but then also potential up and comers that you can kind of grow organically and be homegrown products, which would be awesome to see as well, because there's so many indie stars out there right now. It's just, you got to dig for them sometimes. I know that they're out there. Gio's one of them. I want to say Hammerstone is definitely one of them per se. He is a big deal in the indie world. He's been to almost every company there is. Hopefully he found a home at GSW with that title, and we see him defend that for as long as he can. I know you probably got some competition lined up for him. I know we'll talk about that with Catalyst. With Catalyst coming up in May. I think is it May 5th? I have the schedule up, right?
May 22nd.
May 22nd. I was way off. I'm sorry. I got it right.
Yeah, you had the right
time. But yeah, before we get to the main event, we talked about the Ricky Reyes defeated Galvano and Smiley. Do you see a rematch between them for that title of any kind? Or is that storyline ended and you're going to just push Galvano against somebody new and see where he lands?
Well, we have a couple of things planned. A match. So tentatively, we're looking at a tag team match that will have all 3 of the people from the triple threat involved in some capacity. Whether that spawns off into singles matches or not, I'm not 100% sure yet. We may do some matches on high voltage just to see how that goes. But then we have some other plans for a future storyline that'll be taking place after that.
Awesome. I like that you, we talked, again, I don't want to keep harping back to our first interview, but we know that you lay plans. You aren't just thinking about tomorrow. You are looking down the line. You're looking at not just the next event, but the next event after that. And give or take, you go with the flow with what happens. So to know that you have something planned for not just the next event, but every event, until whatever, I don't know how far your reach is, but the foreseeable future is.
I mean, we're pretty much like loosely planned for almost 2 years.
Wow. I'm so excited, man. I'm so excited about that, bro. Because I've seen so many bookings. You're just like, did you plan the ending of this storyline, or were you just going with the flow? Were you kind of vibing with the crowd, or what? Because I'm like, the beginning of this was great, but the end of this was like, what? Who's the father of that kid? Like, why is that a storyline? Like, it started in a cage and it ends in the baby ward. Like, all right. Anyways, I'm not gonna rag on other companies too much. So there were some potential TBAs, and obviously there's so many factors that can affect a debut or an announcement, and it always says to be announced or card subject to change. These are always indefinite articles. Obviously you were looking for forward to any wrestler that you announced might show up. Who didn't show up that you are still just gung-ho about getting on the next card? I know you had on the Twitter a couple of roster profile pics pulled up. Some of them didn't show up. Are you still gunning for them, or is it at their leisure?
Well, we had 3 that didn't show up. We had Jake Christ, we had Shaw Guerrero, and Joe Doering. Those were the 3 that weren't able to make it for whatever circumstances. And, it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
We were really, I would say mostly for us, we were excited about working with Doering. That main event was like that was one of our dream matches. We were really excited about it. But one thing that I've learned over the last month as these things change is like, you're going to find somebody who's just as good, if not even better or close enough or whatever. And what ends up coming out of it may even be better than what it would have been originally. And like, I know the fans were really excited about Christ and Holiday, but now we had Maddox there, and he's, you know, one of the people are like, oh, we noticed him at this show, and that could be like another breakout that we have with him. And Trish Adora, I mean, there's no complaint with that match. I don't think it could have gone better, no matter what happened. And Aries in the main event,
Love that.
Arguably Aries is probably the biggest unsigned name outside of like a CM Punk or The Rock or something like that. So
I don't
to have
know
him,
who they are. CM, I don't know who that is. How about him not showing up last night at Revolution like everybody thought anyways?
Yeah.
So the Austin Aries thing, I love Austin Aries as a character and as a wrestler. But I do believe, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Was he a replacement for Joe Doring? Was the original main event at one point Hammerstone versus Doring? Was that something? Or
that was the original main event? Yeah.
Did they have a confrontation within your ropes or within your product where that was set up? Or am I thinking of a different promotion that they were going to continue the feud over at your facility?
Oh, I don't know. They never had any confrontation. We were hoping to get like promos of them to air before the show, but
okay, maybe there was a tweet or something. Maybe there was an Instagram. I thought I had saw something where they were. Maybe it was just your poster. Might have been that.
Yeah.
With that main event coming through, and it was awesome. You do have a champion. It is Hammerstone, but you do have another challenger who sort of made a surprise appearance. Chris Dickinson.
No, hey, you got to look.
What?
Bone Dirty, Chris Dickinson, Team Filthy, Lawler, man. Tom Lawler, right? Team Filthy.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm a huge Lawler like MMA fan. So when he carried over that character to pro wrestling, I'm like, he was already coming out. If you go watch real quickly, just old Tom Lawler weigh-ins for UFC, he'd come out dressed like Hogan. He'd have the weird beard. He looked like Wolverine. He dressed like Macho Man. He would do things on the Ultimate Fighter, like pee in seaweed and make people eat it. It's I'm serious. Google it. But so when you get someone from his same camp like Dickinson, that is a character for sure. The Joe Doring piece of the puzzle, is that still a piece of the puzzle? Because obviously you have this main event now for Inception. Do you still see a future with him in your company or even challenging either one of those for the winner of that match?
I don't know. I'd have to wait to see, because the original discussion ended at, because of the lockdown in Canada, he wasn't able to attend the show. So, there was really nothing that we could do about it outside of, just finding a replacement. And he was very good. He helped us. Like, if you want me to call anybody in Impact, let me know, just give me a name. I'll call him up personally. I'll try to help you find a replacement. So he was very good. Depending on how schedules go, when the restrictions loosen up so he's able to come and do our show, we're definitely, doors always open. But I don't know. We just have to see when he's available, where we're at. The only problem, like in the main event picture, is, like I said, it's the planning. We've planned so far ahead. We have a lot of challengers lined up. So not every show. So there is a possibility that we could squeeze him in at one of the shows, and it would be an interesting, have him challenge for the title, have him wrestle somebody else in just a big one-off match, or bring him on and put him as part of a faction. There's all kinds of different ideas, because we had a lot of plans for him, and they were all really exciting stuff. So maybe we can make it happen.
When you said he was open to helping you find his replacement, was he the person who helped you find the replacement, or did you have to go about the Chris Dickinson thing like that just came in happenstance, like side chart? You said that Joe Doring said like, hey, let me help you find a replacement. Let me call anybody you want. Was that how you got the replacement, or was that a separate phone call someone else had made to help replace him?
No, we asked him for one or two people in Impact, and neither of them were accepting indie bookings right now with COVID, stuff like that. So we had just messaged like everybody that we possibly could. Ironically, we just messaged Aries through Twitter, and randomly, like when we're in the middle of freaking out who we're going to get, he hit us back up. He's like, yeah, sure, I'd love to be your hero for X amount of dollars. And we're like, all right, let's do it. I didn't expect that to get back to us. Okay, this is going to be bigger than I thought.
Okay, so in the most respectful way possible, how much, and you can stop me. I'll be as respectful as possible. How much like Austin Aries is Austin Aries? Is that's got to be him like almost 24/7. I don't think much of that is a gimmick. Is it just him turned up to 10 or even like 11?
What do you mean?
Like the character Austin Aries versus working with him in the professional sense. Is he? I heard he was a character and he's kind of entertaining to be around, whether or not he's in the ring or not.
I mean, I will say that as far as people that we've dealt with, I absolutely love doing business with him. Like, he was an angel, came through, saved our show pretty much. Every step of the way, very professional, called us on the phone, went through some ideas, like anything I could do to help. And he really went above and beyond out of his way to promote the hell out of the show. Like, every time somebody made a tweet, boom, he'd retweet it. Doesn't matter if they had 10 followers, he'd make posts. He did his promo. He really went above and beyond for us to help us out, and having somebody, with his stature basically promoting us like 20 times a day really helped us out a lot. In terms of like a character, yeah, I mean, he's an entertaining guy to talk to.
Yeah, I mean, I respectfully mean that I've heard that he's as charismatic in and outside of, I guess you would say, the TV cameras. Like, he's not really doesn't have to turn much on to become the Austin Aries person. That's just who he is. And I just heard he was just like exciting to be around, like even in the locker room.
Yeah. I mean, he's interesting to talk to. I enjoyed all of our conversations, but like, as you saw at our show, he was a totally different Austin Aries than what you saw, last time he wrestled almost 2 years ago. He was much more mellow, and same thing like with his theme song. It was like really dreary, and he just came out and walked, and it was interesting to see that change. But that was also like, as he said, like part of his journey and like finding himself and stuff. So it's interesting to see how he's changed.
Yeah. I think it's one of his last matches. If it wasn't the WrestleMania versus Neville, aka Pac, it was like 1 or 2 after that. And
yeah, it was
like a layoff.
MLW's last pay-per-view.
Okay.
And that was about 1 year and 8 months ago ish. And that was his last match. Yeah, that was his last match before us.
Yeah, and then from there he dropped all the belts because he was the Thanos at the time, holding every promotion's title at the time, and he was proud of that. And honestly, I commend you a lot. This show was incredible. Top to bottom, loved every match of it. I love the fact that you brought, Chris Dickinson in the title hunt picture. I'm looking forward to see that match between him and Hammerstone. And Dickinson, he's not familiar of being on a title hunt. I mean, I've seen his matches prior, in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I'm familiar with his work. Great athlete. What made your decision to actually book Chris and now have him in the title picture?
Well, I mean, aside from just the pure talent, like his style aligns with our style, and our hunt is for people that your main goal is you want to have an excellent match in the ring, not a 5-minute like quick TV match. Like, we're here for every match should be pay-per-view quality. And he's somebody who fits in the strong style. He loves all that stuff. And ironically enough, Hammerstone put out his like dream list for this year. One of the people he wanted to wrestle was Dickinson.
Yeah.
Dickinson also feels the same way about Hammerstone. They both also like the same style. So we're like, well, how do we get this guy on the show? It took a couple of phone calls with New Japan to get approval for it because I think he's full-time with them now. So It was getting approval from New Japan. They gave us the green light after they realized Hammerstone does not work for Pro Wrestling Noah. So after that, then boom. All right, let's make it a surprise. He flew in from another thing he was doing like the day of, shot over, made his appearance, and now they're both like excited about their match that they're going to have, and we'll see who walks out with the belt.
Yeah, definitely. I'm stoked and excited, man. Once again, on this debut pay-per-view was by far the best I've seen in any independent promotions by far, and so once again I commend you for it. Especially, I did enjoy the women's match, Deonna Purrazzo, Trish Adora. That match, wow, it just
phenomenal.
It was incredible, and it is unfortunate that Trish Adora doesn't get the credential that she deserves, because this is her herself is another incredible athlete in the ring. She should be like somewhere in a major promotion. But I mean, what were your thoughts about that women's match, and how were you really proud of that? Like that's the fact that she took, I'm pretty sure a week was. I'm not sure how long it took you to book her to be replacing Shaw.
Out of the show, maybe just a little bit more. There wasn't much time brought her on, and I mean the both main events, like you could argue which one was the better match, and that's incredible in its own right, because you would argue between Hammerstone and Aries, they're both have more tenure in the business. They've both been doing it longer. And of course, Deanna's up there with them, but Trish is much newer in her career. And for her to go toe to toe and keep up with Deanna says a lot. But we knew, she's one of the fastest rising indie stars. And we figured one of the best ways to help get her noticed is, well, put her in the ring with Deanna.
Yeah. And it definitely worked out. And she got very well noticed because of that match. And I don't know, but anybody who has not seen it should watch it, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you still watch it on Fight TV. You can still order that, watch the replay. And also kudos to Joe from the Ring podcast, because they did a watch along live. And so, I was in there as well. So I was in there, I was watching it myself as they were watching it. So, we had a lot of upset discussions. We were more in shock of seeing Jacob Fatu. I was shocked seeing Dickinson. But overall, so by far you introduced the next gen title. You introduced your GSW World Heavyweight title. You introduced the women's championship as well, which is another match as well that is not much spoken about. But I wanted to touch that one as well, basis with you. What made your decision to go with? Excuse me if I'm pronouncing her name incorrectly, but is it Slamovich or something? I apologize. I can't really pronounce her name. I don't know. Slamovich. There you go.
Yeah,
yes.
It's just a play on words with that one.
Yeah. So what made your decision to move with her, giving her being the first crown women's champion?
Well, that's another talent that is not so well known in the United States. Although now that she's been back from Marvelous for a little while, she's been getting bookings all over the country. So now she's more well known already, and we've been lucky. She's been allowed to not defend the belt, but bring the belt with her on other shows. And she's an incredible talent who is trained a little bit in Marvelous, has worked there in a hard-hitting, Kings Road style company. So she is somebody who aligns exactly with our vision and delivers 120%. And her match with Hyen was fantastic.
Yeah, it was. It was fantastic. I was like, wow. But I didn't expect that. Honestly, I was expecting Hyen to kind of win the match. I was expecting that, but when I saw her win, oh my God, okay, this is something fresh and new. And I'm not much familiar with her work, but I'm not her being your women's champion. Obviously, going to be watching more of her matches, and the way how she works in the ring, her chemistry is incredible. It's just, yeah. But she's like I said, it's never been spoken about as well. So now that you introduce those 3 titles, is on your next show, Catalyst, are you going to introduce the tag titles, or you're just holding that on until further notice?
He's not going to tell us.
I know. Hey, man, I'm sorry if I sound like a Dave Meltzer here, okay? But when are you? So, are you planning to obviously introduce the tag team titles, but not anytime soon, right? So maybe later on down the road.
And we haven't made any announcement on this yet, but we are tentatively going to do like a mid-card belt at the Catalyst, the second show. Okay. The tag team titles we're saving. I don't know if it's going to be the 4th show in November, if it's going to be early next year. It depends. We're really trying to find somebody who's like an incredible belt designer. Because I've been designing them myself, and my girlfriend's been designing them with me. So it's like, we're okay, and I like how they've come out, but I really want like those like IWGP or HG belt level designs, and I can't do that. So honestly, it's the stupidest thing, but I'm really just waiting to find like the right designer before I start bringing out like those belts. But yeah, we are looking at doing a mid-card belt very soon, and it's probably going to be a Catalyst.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that.
to move your stories, I know that there's about 2 months, give or take, between the two pay-per-view events. And you have High Voltage. Is the plan for that to be a weekly or bi-monthly show that moves stories along that gets us from point A to point B? And or are you just trying to find a rhythm that kind of tells that story that you have so well planned out?
Yeah, so High Voltage is going to be bi-weekly. It's going to start later this month. And the idea of High Voltage is it's going to show, they're going to be like a 30-minute time slot TV show. So like an anime episode, it's going to be like 22 minutes long. It'll be depending if it's one long match or two shorter matches, and it'll comprise the episode with some, we have some backstage interviews with some of our talent. We'll have some hype videos and highlights and stuff from previous shows. So they'll be kind of like reminding everyone, hey, I know it's been a month or two, but this is what happened at Inception, and this is what's going to be happening at Catalyst, and then from Catalyst on to the next one, and so on. So it will like have points that help keep everybody remembering what's going on, because that was my concern doing quarterly shows, was people will forget if we're doing shows every 3 months. So that's pretty much the idea there. And our champions on High Voltage, Masha and Gio, the Next Gen and the Soul of Syndicate champion, those belts, the reason for them is those are the qualifiers to be on the big pay-per-views. Whoever holds the belt is guaranteed a spot on the main show. If you don't hold the belt, then you're not guaranteed a spot, but there are exceptions, like Wrecking Ball was on High Voltage, but he was also on Inception. So, but only, for instance, now Gio and Masha are the only ones who are really guaranteed a spot on main shows.
Yeah, we know that you have a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Parallel to sports approach. You wanted your company to be more about the sports and the entertainment. Obviously, entertainment matters, but more of an athletic competition than I guess you would say soap opera, with no disrespect to anybody who has a different plan than you. You mentioned qualifiers. I love that you have this almost, not per se tournament style, but you definitely have to earn your spot on those pay-per-views, other than just having a crazy gimmicky storyline where, someone runs in, someone's doing this or someone's doing that. Best way to get on your main cards is to win. And right. I love that. Do you still plan on having, I guess, more in-depth storylines involved where people do have personal issues they want to resolve between either the pay-per-views that culminate with a pay-per-view match?
Yeah, and the good thing about treating those two belts specifically as this is what gets you the stepping stone is it automatically, every match that you have for the title then has a story built into it. And we've had a lot of people that have hit us up, whether they were on High Voltage or their talent that we would look at for High Voltage, that are like, I need to be on May 22nd. Go to High Voltage and win the title.
I love that because I compare this. We do an MMA episode, and I always make the joke that like the Patriots aren't going to go to the Super Bowl because they sell the most T-shirts. It's because they won the most games. And you, in my opinion, are applying that same logic to pro wrestling.
Yeah.
So I like that. It's like, oh, I don't care who's got the more personal issue with Hammerstone or whose mom is dating Buff Bat, whatever the issue is, you just got to win. And then, put on the spirited performance and then take it to the main stage. And that is refreshing, in my opinion.
And I would say that is the heart, the meat and potatoes of what we're doing. It's sports oriented. It's treated like that. You need to prove that you can go in the ring. It's very important that you're able to cut a promo. Like Holiday cut a crazy promo. He had the fans eating out of the palm of his hand. It was amazing. And then anything Maddox said after that was just like the fans got right behind him, which is great.
Yes.
And there is, of course, we have plans for, and those stories can only develop over time, because as the way that I treat this, and I'm very particular about this with the company, is everything that happens in GSW is non-canon everywhere else. You can't, your storyline over here does not matter. What happens in GSW is what story is going to be propelled throughout, because you might see somebody here and it might be weird that, let's say, like, we did an injury angle or something, but then next week they're wrestling at some other company. All right, well, forget about that. When you're watching our show, this person just hurt.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work against us.
Chris Evans is Human Torch and Captain America, but when I'm watching Avengers, he's Captain America.
Exactly.
And that's how I feel that you're going that route. And it's great. Just, I hate to use the words that we're using. Like, I try to not use kayfabe words like fictional or whatever it is you want to say, but like just having your own universe. You are running your own little Brandon Ascari MCU, and that's got to be just as a kid in a candy store, and you get to sit there now, and it has to give you chills to know that you get to do this, and you had a successful debut show, being the mark and the businessman almost at the same time. But that's got to be wonderful to just be able to just have these people work for you and work with you and pull something like this off.
Most importantly was the feedback that we got even from the talent post show, is that they're like, this was one of our, like, the best locker room environments. Like, everybody was just cool. They, no problems, no nothing. Just everybody was friendly and nice and blah, blah, blah. Like, so it was great in that regard. The fans received it well. The locker room was happy. We were happy.
Nobody threw a championship belt at you in the gorilla position saying, eat this.
No, and they didn't like stomp it on TV and then try to light it on fire either.
Throw it off a bridge.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. Because I know the locker room, a happy locker room is definitely more important than almost anything.
I mean, it translated. If they were happy before the show, then they went out there and put on a performance that made all the fans happy, and then in turn made us happy. So,
you guys have like a post-show party in the back, just like, woo, pop the champagne bottles, put you in a chair, or was it just like high five, good job, see you next time?
Well, the problem was the venue wanted us out pretty quick. So, and the breakdown that we had was really intense, and our crew was small. So we were looking forward to it, and we know a couple like groups kind of broke up and went to different places to go hang out, but I didn't even get home until like 2:30 in the morning before after breaking.
Because I wasn't there tearing down the ring for you, man. That was my gig. That's how I cut my teeth, dude. Like, everybody who ever is a rookie in a training facility, you're training, but you are a young boy. You are building that ring, setting up the chairs, wrestling your match, and then taking it all down.
Yeah.
Well, with that question, did you have any of those? Were there any like ultra rookies that you just got to do at your leisure and then booked on the card, or have like planned to be booked at some point, or is it just all vets and you have a separate ring crew?
Well, the thing is, we booked venues that were wrestling schools. So Monster Factory, we didn't have to touch
put together.
Yeah, it's already there. We didn't have to break it down. The only thing we had to do was change and put our the canvas and the aprons on, and then we taped the ropes because we wanted to give them the black, orange, black. So try to get the branding down a little bit. So we had our crew that was separate from the wrestlers. I don't want to force any of the wrestlers to do anything, but Monster Factory was nice. They had a bunch of their students there as gophers helping us move stuff around, set stuff up. So we were lucky in that regard. But no, I usually try to, if I'm hiring you to wrestle, I want you to focus on your wrestling. If I'm hiring
you're bringing in outside talent. You don't have basically your own. Like with my school, the school was also the wrestlers. So the students were the wrestlers. They were also the crew, especially if you were 15, like I was, who was, I don't want to say hazed, but definitely had to, do all the Charlie looks.
So, I know. When I was training, I was 14 till I was about 16 or 17. And it was, you show up, you help. All right, they're going to make you take 400 bumps before the show so you can get the practice in. Then you're going to do your little spot on the show, now sore as hell. And then afterwards, don't forget, you'll be here until 1 o'clock in the morning breaking down the ring.
Well, I had to hand cut the tickets. I had to do everything but hand them at the door. Yeah, dude, those are the days. I almost missed them. But I would love to come set your ring up or whatever, man. But I'm way out here, so we'll figure it out. Yeah. What you got, Ivan? You got anything, man? Did you ever build a ring?
No, I never built a ring. I mean, I've been in a ring, but I never built one. But yes,
it's easier than it looks as long as you got like.
Yeah, I tried out, didn't work out for me. I got injured, and that was it. So it is what it is. But I still, love the passion for it, regardless of it. I wanted to ask as well, and not going into details, by the way, on this one. I just want to know, like, basically, the buy rates were on Fight TV. Was it what you expected, or was it even, or how did you feel the buy rates on?
Were you happy?
Yeah, were you happy at the end of the day?
Okay. Okay. That's a fair way to put it, obviously.
As far as, I had my expectations set really high. And to be fair, I always have my expectations way higher than they should be. I can tell you that I spoke after the show with the CEO of Fight, and he said for a first ever show with a debuting company, he's like, you guys did really damn good. And I'm like, I didn't break even on the show or turn a profit. So I'm like, I didn't do well as far as I'm concerned. But, and going into it, though, why I wasn't upset about it really, is that we knew we had to get the first show out of the way. We needed to show people that we were serious. We needed to show that we weren't messing around, that we're actually going to have, because you've never seen us before. You've just seen me, on podcasts, and you've seen posts on social media. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be real. So now here's an event, here's video footage from it. Now you could go see the show. You've seen it. Okay. People are excited about it. They're talking about it now. I mean, right after the show, our social media went up like 40%. And followers and stuff like that. So now, boom, all right, that goes to the second show. Good. Second show, we get a little bit closer. Third show, we get a little bit closer. And same thing, we're signed with Fight Globe. They're our international distribution manager, basically, and they help us get like deals in other countries to get our show on television networks. And we had interest from 3 countries, but they wanted to see the show first. So it all comes back to the same thing. We had sponsors that are interested, but they want to see a show first. So everything was, okay, have the show, then we'll see how it does going into the second one. So I think the second one's going to be much more successful. I don't know if it'll be a break even, but I definitely think by third or fourth, we should start doing pretty well.
Absolutely. And I see it, by far, this debut, it spoke for itself, and I'm looking forward for the other upcoming events you're going to have. And I'm assuming obviously going to have much bigger names in the card besides the names that you brought out on this debut. We spoke about it in the last interview. I know that your goal is at least to get at least some talent from Noah or from DDT, so just to come to GSW. Are you still aiming for that goal? You're still trying to reach for that? It's like, come on to my territory and perform in my ring.
Whose voicemails is your voice sitting on right now? You're waiting for callback. So you allowed? Can you talk about any of this? Like, I want to, whatever you can share. We want to know who you got in mind.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say we've spoken with Tajiri, the head booker of All Japan. He wants a working relationship with us. He's just waiting for COVID to loosen the restrictions a little bit so it's easier to get talent back and forth. So All Japan's already basically in the bag. We could definitely work with them to what capacity we're going to determine. But we got rates on wrestlers like all the way up to Suwama we could have on the show. We get Miyahara, stuff like that. So that's no problem. New Japan and us have been talking basically like, if you help us when we have talent in America that's looking for bookings, we'll help you. So there's nothing set in stone there, but they gave us permission to have Dickinson work with us. So that's a huge one. And it's just putting feelers out there like Marvelous, where Masha works, and she's put in a good word for us. So when restrictions loosen up, we have that as well. So it's just, we're trying to get our foot in as many doors as possible, because if we could work with New Japan, All Japan, Noah, Marvelous, MLW, Impact, it's like you can have all the dream matches that those companies can't have at GSW.
Exactly. I love it.
It's the content that everybody wants to see.
Definitely. I love it. I'm glad that those doors are now open for you, and I'm happy for you. I cannot wait to see more of it. Especially with New Japan. I know it's kind of I know we have a LA dojo here in Los Angeles. I think Rocky Romero runs it. I believe he does. But yeah, so I'm not sure if he's in charge of talent as well. So I'm glad that also that opened for you. And I'm hoping also to see, I'm not sure you're familiar with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood here in California.
Well.
Yeah. So I don't know if hopefully that opens another relationship as well with Mr. Marquez, and I'm hoping it does. And even with Dustin Starr from Championship Wrestling from Memphis, another one.
I gotta get that hair. I gotta get that haircut, man. His hair is off the charts lately. It is like, I don't know how he gets through doors.
That's awesome.
But definitely I'm looking forward to see what's next for the product. My other question that I actually did you have any disappointment at all in the card itself or even backstage? Was there anything that kind of like disappointed you at all, or you felt like everything went successfully great and there was no backlash to anything?
Or maybe even just any speed bumps during the event itself. You're like, oh shit, this happened. We got to account for this. Just like any unforeseen. I mean, you always expect the unexpected, but something that was just like, shit, let's figure this out on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
The internet connection was not as strong as I was hoping it was going to be. So we had some glitches with the stream. If you were watching live, it would cut out for 30 seconds or something, and then we'd get it back. So that's something we're addressing with the next venue. Is we're investing a ridiculous amount of money into cellular bonding so we could take like cell phone signals and the hardwire, put it together and have a strong signal. Otherwise, like I won't mention specific matches, but anybody who was watching the show will notice that there were a couple of matches where there were significant botches.
Yes. So I won't mention them. I'm not going to mention them, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So other than that, which is definitely something that needs to be addressed, and to a degree has been already. Other than that, everything was, and in the grand scheme of things, it still came out fine, and it didn't detract too much from the show, but it did bother me a little bit.
That's great.
As professional as you are, and I know you in this very friendly environment, when you do have to have a talk like that, and assuming you have had a talk with someone where you had to pull them aside, what's that like? What approach do you take? Do you have a very like, hey man, listen, you did a great job, but let's work on this? Or was it like, you're a professional, that's not something I expect from you? Like, who is Brandon, the professional, showrunner backstage?
It depends. It's a case by case basis. I'm trained as an actor, but I was also trained in wrestling, so I could be really stiff and a pain in the ass to talk to, or I could be I will just give it the way you give it to me. So I'm very reactionary. If I start the conversation, it's going to be pleasant and professional. How you react to it is how I'm going to react to it, and how the rest of the conversation goes. So it either
match the energy, which I like.
Yeah, it could be, everything was fine. There were just a couple spots. This is what I think we could do differently. All right, if you respond, then it's like, okay, if you didn't hear me before, then this is how it's going to go going forward. So it changes quickly. And I've never had an issue. Usually I've always been pretty good feeling out situations and being able to respond to calm down the situation instead of it escalating, because I believe that situations escalate because of the person who they're having the conversation with. So I would see it as my fault if somebody got angry with me.
Unless they just are that person.
No. I think it's completely in my control.
Okay.
I was the manager in retail for a really long time, and even when I had customers come in yelling and screaming, I could get them to just be pleasant and leave with a thank you and goodbye.
Nice.
So I think it just depends on how you handle the person, and if you handle them right, then you can get them to calm down.
That's
but
good.
Specifically, like the note is, I think what we should do in the next show is, tone some of this down. Let's focus more on mat work and stuff like that until we get more in the swing of things, and then we could start adding them in again, or just more practice, stuff like that. So it was well received, because if I noticed it, they noticed it, so they already knew. And,
it's so much when you're just like, the only thing worse than the performer knowing or noticing it and your boss noticing it are the fans noticing it. And that's where a lot of the pressure comes from. I think we've talked about that chant, and I don't want to repeat it because I don't want people to get the idea that it's okay to chant it. It comes from my stomping grounds, the old ECW. We all know what I'm talking about, but like, if you can prevent that chant from appearing on your programming, that's a win in itself.
Yeah,
for sure. One of the last things I want to talk about, and it's almost just, it's canon, it's fun, is the names of your pay-per-view events. They mean something. Obviously, Inception is the definition is the beginning of something. The next one in May, Catalyst, which is the culmination of something that explodes into something bigger, better, or badder. You have 2 years planned. Do you have all of your events lined up? Or do you have buzzwords ready to go? And do they all relate to the story of that pay-per-view event?
I mean, the names have to coincide. So Inception was the start of it all, going into Catalyst, which is like the thing that's going to create the next big thing or lead to something big. And that is Mercury Rising, which is the third show where the women's champion will be crowned. So
I love that.
We build up to that. And then tentatively the fourth show, which we couldn't think of a good follow-up name. That one's Apex.
Oh my God. You're killing it. That's awesome.
But that's the 4 shows for the year and their tentative names. You know, we have the logos, graphics and stuff made for them. And the story of it has to coincide with what we're doing with it. Like we wanted, as big as the focus of the men's world champion was at Inception, is how we're building to make the women's world champion just as important as the men's, and showcase that as the main event. And that's actually going to be, which we decided is going to be a 2-night event for the third show. So it'll be back-to-back nights, kind of like Wrestle Kingdom, back-to-back. So it'll be really big.
Right. Forward. Now, one last question.
Yeah, go ahead. You first, man.
One last question. I apologize to interrupt. Host, my apologies.
No, you're all good, man. I was just talking about the women and how important it is to keep a balance between the many genders that are within the wrestling world. But I'll let him ask yours. You can follow up with mine, and then we'll close it out.
All right. Thank you, host.
Not bad for a first time.
So, for Catalyst, your plans in regards of how, well, obviously you have it in a different venues. Am I correct? So this is going to be a different venue, not the one you had just previously. But is your goal? I know as we're seeing a couple states little by little are opening, or is your goal also as well to have your events like besides up in the northeast, but also have it like more towards maybe our side here in the West Coast, maybe if it opens up, or like, you know, overall, or is that like a goal as well as like when you have your events is to, once everything is slowly opening up, is to have it, you know, featured in different venues in different states, right?
Of course. Yeah. We're looking at as early as the 4th show this year, branching out. We've decided to stay for the first 3 shows in New Jersey, and we're locked in on those. We left the 4th show open because we think restrictions will be a little better. So, you know, maybe Chicago, maybe Texas, maybe Florida, maybe California. We're looking at where the real hotbeds are for wrestling. We don't want to go to a dead town in the middle of nowhere, but staying in the wrestling hotbeds. And then hopefully by the 2nd or 3rd year, we're hoping to branch out and either do like a joint show in Japan or our own show. Dubai is another one that's been somewhat interested in us. The UK, like anywhere where we could go where there's a dedicated base. So we're trying to test the waters overseas with the television deals that we're hopefully going to be getting in the near future, see kind of like what the reaction is, what the ratings are like over there. And that'll let us know like, oh, does it justify the business going over there? And same thing in the US, we're trying to get a handle on like, where are people primarily watching our show from, and then try to start targeting those markets as well.
Nice. And then the last thing before we close out is I did want to mention how balanced you are with your women's and men's wrestling. You mentioned Mercury Rising, the event after Catalyst. The main event for that is going to be the women's title match. Is that going to be an entire female card? Do you look at something like that? Does that matter to you, or do you just want to have a 50-50 roster? Your goals for the women's division, creating your own, like you said, you wanted to have some faces that represent your company, obviously. Who would you like to maybe see down the road from female divisions that could be those faces? Yeah, I think because right now it's a very important time in women's wrestling. You see that with other companies, cross-promoting, bringing in a bunch of wrestlers, a lot of Western culture may not have heard of. You're doing your own thing with your own roster right now. Just talk about your point of view on that entire division.
So there's a lot of different things in that, and I'll try to answer all of them. And I don't really like the idea of doing like all men's or all women's. I like keeping it mixed, and I think we're one of the only companies that had 3 women's matches on their show, let alone their first ever one. And that's a trend that we want to keep going forward. I don't think it'll ever be 50-50, like consistently. You know, sometimes we'll have 3 women's matches, 4 men's. Sometimes it'll be 4 women's, 3 men's, you know, but it'll balance itself out. But we are very, you know, generally speaking, when you have like a men's world title match, that's going to be the last match that goes on the show. We want the women's title. They may not be defended at the same time because we'll give it, all right, you got it here, then you get it over here. But like the 2-night one would be a men's world title defense the first night, and then the finals of the Global Champions Cup for the women's will be the second night. So that way, just the way that it's working, the first round's going to be May, then the second round will be the first night, and the finals will be the second night of Mercury Rising. So going forward, you know, we want our women's division to be just as well known as the men's. And from the talent we've hired, I think we're pretty close in that. And the talent that we have locked in and that we will be announcing for the Global Champions Cup, we have some of the biggest names that are available that'll be in the tournament. You know, we have Deonna Purrazzo, we have Kimberly, we have Trisha Dora, we have Hyen, and a couple of others that we'll be announcing soon. Some that you've already seen, some that you haven't, and that just continuing that trajectory going forward and keeping it women's title world championship is just as valued as the men's world championship. Same thing when we later on have enough roster to introduce tag titles for the women's division and the mid-card belt and stuff like that. We already have the Solo Syndicate, which is the high voltage one. Having those, and that just, you know, keeps it equal and keeps it just as important. And as long as they're going out there and putting on just as good of a main event as the guys, then there's no reason for it to change.
Love that. That is awesome. We were ultra excited for the debut a month ago. We were and are still super fans of what you were able to pull off. You know, hopefully now that you didn't have an event to base a standard on. It was a virtual train, but now this train's got wheels, and they're huge wheels. You have Alex Hammerstone right now as the flagship big man in the company. We're just glad that the event was able to be pulled off. We're hoping that Catalyst is just as big or bigger. Definitely want everything to steamroll itself into GSW being like obviously a premier indie or even beyond indie promotion. I want to talk about your social medias right now. I want to let people know where they can find you. You were smart enough to make it very easy. You sort of have a one-stop shop. If you go to their Instagram, which is GSW Pro, in his biography section, there is a direct.me link. And all you got to do is click on that. You will find every other social media link in one stop right there. You will find where to find the replay of Inception, upcoming tickets to Catalyst. You can follow the YouTube on there. That's where you're going to see the high voltages, his Twitter, his Facebook, articles, merchandise is a big deal. There's some awesome, real, I want to say this respectfully, not flashy, but to the point GSW shirts. There's also, we talked about that throwback Inception shirt, which is really awesome. Old school fight to right looking shirt. So GS Pro on Instagram, follow every link down there. I want to thank Brandon Ascari and everyone who helped him put this show together. I know that he's doing a lot of the legwork, but he absolutely smart enough to delegate to a crew that helps him pull this off. So we can't wait to watch the Catalyst card. Hopefully have you back after the results of that and have a very similar interview, which greater success. And I can't wait to see who you bring into the card, man. When COVID's done, man, hopefully there's a lot of cancellations and variations in your roster have been moved around for that reason. When things start to steady, I think you're going to get the roster you've been waiting for, man.
I think so too. And I really appreciate that. And couldn't have said nicer things.
I'm a fan, man. It's not just because you and I are like, we get along. I would be a fan of your company if we didn't do these interviews. So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. We are going to post this very soon. Not sure when. Ivan is a man with a plan down there. But yeah, thank you for watching Circle Debate. I'm CK Chris Kennedy. That's Ivan, Brandon Ascari from GS Pro, Global Syndicate Wrestling. And you guys have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.